All right, all right. How's everybody doing? Welcome back to the Texas League Weekly Video Podcast. This is week 14. I am one of your hosts, Dwayne Devastator Morrow, and I have my co-host with me, Jared, the commissioner extraordinaire, uh, owner of Stairway to Evans. Uh, our ghost host is once again being a good father. Now, the thing about fatherhood is it is a contact sport, much like the sport that we discuss here weekly. So we give a shout out to our co-host, Dr. Deuce, aka Mathis King, who couldn't be here with us this week as he is fulfilling his fatherly duties. But we still have some good news on his behalf that we'll be able to share. And he also sent us his picks in for what will be the final week of the regular season for Texas League, which we're going to have a lot of good playoff implications to discuss this week. But first, let us jump right into the NFL Week 13 games, starting with a Thursday night matchup between AFC East rivals, the Bills and the Patriots. Now, unlike typical games, as Jared pointed out last week, both of these teams actually played on Thanksgiving Day. So they both had an equal amount of rest coming into this second in a row Thursday night game for both teams. So, Jared, talk to us a little bit about the Bills over the Patriots, which was actually able to be held on the East Coast this week instead of having to relocate to Detroit.
Uh, I expected a more high-scoring game, actually,
Yeah.
but it wasn't the normal abysmal Thursday night football game that we get. 24-10, it's a good game. It's not great, as the Josh Allen, I guess you could say the Josh Allen fantasy owners noticed. He didn't come through with no 30, 40-point game. He was better in real life than he was in fantasy. We'll say that much.
Right.
And the Patriots just kind of looked like the week before they scored 10 points, and that was because of a late punt return touchdown. They came through with another 10 points.
It was like the Mac
Jones and the
last
boys
point.
not looking too great.
Yeah, it was like the punt with under 1 minute to go in that game. That's the only touchdown that was scored between the two teams last week. So, yeah, not looking. Things aren't looking really good for the Patriots. And I would definitely say, as a fantasy owner, for both of these games, you have to be asking yourself, where are Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar? So when you look at the receiving weapons for the Patriots, right? Like Mac Jones is not going to blow anybody away. We know that, right? Not only because, he was behind a great line and a great system at the University of Alabama, but he is serviceable enough as a game manager. What's going on, co-host? That you would expect him to be able to come out and move the ball a little bit better looking at these offensive weapons. I mean, Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar, Devontae Parker, Hunter Henry, right? These are legit receiving weapons, both underneath and over the top. But the Buffalo defense is not giving them enough time to really take advantage or really be able to stretch the field. Buffalo defense did have a big casualty on the defensive side of the ball. So, we'll see how their defense fares going into the rest of the season. But other than that, I mean, you had the usual from like really just the average with Josh Allen, but Stephon Diggs continued to put up big numbers, 7 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. So if you drafted Stephon Diggs in the first round, which of course you did, then you're happy with that performance. So decent game for Thursday night. So let's touch on a few of the Sunday games. So one game we want to touch on is the Lions versus Jaguars. Now, we don't often get to go into Lions games discussions for positive things, but this Lions team that showed up was the Lions team we saw through the first 5 or 6 games of the season when they were putting up 35 points a game, right? So they went out, had a big game offensively against the Jaguars. Have to be happy if you had any skill players for the Lions this week. Goff, 340 and 2 tuds. DeAndre Swift managed to not get a touchdown vulture, but Jamal Williams still did get his one. So you're still happy with having that touchdown vulture on your roster with his league-leading 14th rushing touchdown. Amon-Ra St. Brown, solid game, double-digit catches, 114 yards, and 2 caught both of the touchdowns. So, in the NFL, it's a passing league. Somebody has to catch the passes. And for Detroit, that's St. Brown. So you got to be happy with those 2 performances, especially if you had the rare Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown stacking your league. You got to be pretty happy with that. On the other side of the ball, not really a lot. Sunshine Bass, under 200, 1 touchdown, no rushing touchdowns. So you can't really be excited if you had any Jaguars players this week. So yeah, so we'll move on. Next, we have a big NFC East matchup between the Commanders and the Giants. So many phrases to describe what a tie is like, and you know them all, so I'm not going to dig into it. But Jared, talk about the fantasy impact of that NFC East game.
I didn't watch that game, and I don't have any players on either one of those teams. But when you go 20-20, I'm assuming there was not a whole lot of just breakout players in these games, especially the way that they was playing. I watched Red Zone. I didn't see any huge touchdowns from Saquon Barkley. I'm trying to pull up some stats. I saw my fair share of missed field goals, though.
Man.
You don't say, Jefferson. I think it appears that Jefferson wasn't very happy with that either.
No. So yeah, both kickers went 2 for 3 on the day.
I assigned the stat. Oh, Brian Robinson went for 96 yards, no touchdown. Jefferson, you got something to say, Jefferson? We'll get back to you later. Tyler Heineke, 275 and 2. That's like, I don't know if anyone actually started Tyler Heineke.
I would say
if they did, 275 and 2 wouldn't be too bad.
You'd have to be you'd have to be in a 14 or 16 team league to have started Heineke this weekend.
Terry McLaurin, 8 catches, 105 yards, and a touchdown. That's a pretty good fantasy day right there.
Yeah,
I'll give him that. But let me see what we got. That's on the. Like I said, I didn't watch this game. I talked to my cousin, the Commanders fan, and he kept saying, "How in the hell will this game go end in a tie?" Daniel Jones, 200 yards. That's not helping nobody. It's not going to be a good day for your team when Daniel Jones is your leading rusher.
No. Danny Dimes got wheels, though. Let's not take anything away from Danny Dimes. Outside of
it says he was averaging 5.9 a carry. I don't care who you are. He averaged 5.9 a carry.
Outside of Josh Allen and insert black quarterbacks here, who's the best rushing quarterback in the league? Daniel Jones in the top 10. You know what I'm saying? It's not an accident. Like, he actually will get out there and hoof that thing on the field. He's not scared to roll out the pocket. So just wasn't.
I think he is deceptively athletic.
Yes, that is definitely a phrase they use to describe Caucasian players in the NFL.
Because the thing is this, there are some people who are known to just be like, when you think Lamar Jackson, you think that dude's gonna pick him up and put him down. You don't think about that.
Right.
If you rush for 71 yards if you rush from 71 yards at quarterback, you really pick him up.
That's not a mistake. That's true. But you know what's funny? You know who's been in the news this week is a former Colts quarterback, Andrew Luck, who was discussing the timing of his retirement And Andrew Luck was also someone I would call that was sneaky athletic. Like Luck used to take off with that thing. We definitely all saw him, from even when the time he was at Stanford and even in the league, he would definitely tuck the ball and run. And of course, there was the big thing about comparing his combine statistics to some of the other more recognized athletic quarterbacks at the time, which was interesting. But Luck was always about the arm and not the legs, and that's where his bread was buttered.
Yeah.
So, and that's where
I will never forget Andrew Luck ran I got a bunch of odd facts. I remember Andrew Luck had like one of the fastest 40s there. It got talked about more, but he was in the class with RG3 who had legit track speed, but Luck was very athletic.
Yes, he was.
I really wish he hadn't retired. I think he could have. I think he would have had a good career, but whatever. So just like
the sad thing. But you know what though? Had he never retired, the Colts would have never invested in their offensive line the way they did. Because for a couple of seasons there, the Colts had a cohesive and what was recognized as one of the top 5 offensive lines in the league. And when healthy, they're still a really good offensive line unit. But he had to sacrifice himself for the good of the franchise. So unfortunate for Colts fans because you see what their franchise looks like now. Hey, Jeff Saturday. Anyway, you better believe we're going to get to that Colts versus Cowboys game. You better know we're going to get to that one later on. All right. So in theme with rivalry week for Texas League, we had a return of Deshaun Watson from suspension. He has not played in over a season and a half, as he was not suspended last year as a Texan, but was inactive for the full season and completed his 11-game suspension earlier this year. So in his first game back, which I absolutely know Roger Goodell, I'll say this. Roger Goodell is a whole lot of things, right? But when he realized he was losing the battle with this whole suspend Deshaun for a whole nother season thing, he reached down into his petty bag and gave him enough games that his suspension was going to end and going to force him to come back to Houston, to the scene of the alleged crimes, to face the Houston crowd. Now, I knew that this was going to be an emotional game, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So what are your thoughts on that, Jared?
That boy looked rusty as a piece of junk found in the front of Red Fox's yard on Sanford and Son. But that's to be expected when you ain't played in what I believe I read somewhere 700 days.
He has got to be close to that.
He's coming up on 2 years. So yeah, bro, you look rusty. His defense bailed him out, which I'm okay with because I picked them up and started them in fantasy. They were my leading scorer. 32 points.
I mean,
they scored every way imaginable except on offense.
Exactly. I'm like, you win 27-14 and have 0 offensive touchdowns. That is, I don't know if I should be more impressed by the Browns' defense or more impressed by the continued ineptitude of the Houston Texans to find new ways to suck. Lovie Smith is known for a lot of things as a coach, but I mean, the creativity to give up three touch. I mean, seriously, fumble return for a touchdown, pick 6, and they gave up a punt return for a touchdown. That's impressive.
You know the crazy part? Now think about what you just said. They gave up 3 touchdowns on offense. If anyone was stuck starting the Houston Texans defense, they might have got a pretty good day out of them because they didn't give up all them points on defense. Somewhere out there, somebody might have had to, in a deep league, had to start the Houston Texans and probably curse themselves the whole way. Like, man, why the hell I got
right?
But they probably had a decent game because I'm sure they got some sacks. I watched minimal of that.
And they got a pick.
Gonna get ugly.
And they also, I mean, Deshaun Watson did throw a pick early in the game too. So I mean, you're right. You would have gotten a little bit of fantasy value out of the Houston Texans, but that's it. Um, yeah, I mean, the only bright spot, and I mean only, is the fact that Pierce still continues to show his value as a running back. And if they ever put some talent around him where they don't have to, where he doesn't have to face eight in the box on just about every play, then he has the potential to be a good running back for the Texans for the next few years. But they got so many pieces. Like they would need to have the first 6 picks in the draft next year to actually have a shot at turning their team around immediately.
So
Thankfully, they
they
do
got
have
a
a few
couple.
picks. I was going to say, now, thankfully, they do have a few picks because of the trade of Deshaun Watson. So we shall see what they do. All right. So, in a game that was not what I expected it to be, when you look at it you expected this to be a decent game. But the final result was very lopsided. And that is the Dolphins versus the 49ers. Now, the Dolphins have two high flying receivers and a good running game that I believe that probably by the end of this weekend, they'll, Tyreek Hill is well over 1,000 yards and Jerry Judy's approaching 1,000 yards. So when you had them coming out to California, you figured should be a decent game um, against the 49ers, but that is not what we got in terms of the result. So the 49ers win this game 33-17. But the big surprise was the fact that Jimmy G gets injured early in the game and they have to bring in the rookie Brock Purdy. So if you're counting and you're a 49ers fan, you are now on your third starting quarterback for the season because you've lost your first two to injury. But to credit young Purdy, he had a good game, 210 with 2 touchdowns. Of course, no one had him starting because he's coming to the game as a backup. So absolutely zero fantasy value this week, except for the fact that he may be auditioning for somebody's roster. Um, but what he did have was the Swiss Army knife that is Christian McCaffrey, who had 66 yards rushing, 8 catches and 80 yards receiving and a touchdown. So the other side of the ball is that the 49ers defense continued to look like one of the best defensive units in the league, and they held the Dolphins' high-powered offense to only 17 points. Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. You can't stop him. You can only hope to contain him. I don't know what sportscaster I stole that from, but that's been around for a while. So, hey, I used it.
Probably Chris Berman.
Probably. So nine
Chris
catches,
Berman so.
9 catches for 146 yards and a touchdown. But if that's all you gave up, I mean, Jalen Waddle 1 catch, 9 yards. Trent Sherfield,
I want to say Jalen Waddle. Didn't he get hurt? I don't know. Everybody's getting hurt Sunday. I don't know.
It's very
he
possible.
He only have 1 catch. Did he get hurt?
It is very possible. I cannot. Well, be honest with you, and I'm not sure. But still, right? You just
on the Google. I can't find it, but yeah.
You didn't see. Go ahead.
So, like, as you were talking, I pulled up the stats for this game, and something sticks out to me. The Miami Dolphins only ran the ball 8 times. They out here playing like they fellow Florida team in Tampa. They don't run the ball when they get behind and just make it worse. But we can talk about that later. But you got to run the ball more than 8 times in a game.
And it wasn't like they needed to abandon the run. I mean, it was 17-10. That's a 1-score game at half. So very much not necessary for you to abandon the run. And then the other part of it is you're dealing with, at this point, a rookie quarterback. So you want to control the flow of the game. So I really didn't understand their abandoning of what's been a good strategy for them this season with establishing the run game. But they definitely got away from that. So that's unfortunate for them. Now we come to what was I mean, for lack of a better term, a good old fashioned ass whooping, which was the Colts versus the Cowboys on Sunday night. Now, the funny thing is when you look, so this is the funny thing about the NFL, right? And as the season progresses, they have the ability to flex games. That means they can change a Sunday afternoon game to a Sunday night, vice versa, etc. So when you looked at this Sunday schedule of games and you saw the rematch between the Bengals and the Chiefs and the Colts versus the Cowboys, knowing how bad the Colts are this year, how you don't flex this game to the afternoon and give us that Chiefs game Sunday night, that boggles my mind. But I know why they didn't though. I know why. Because it's Jerry Jones.
We don't know why.
it's Jerry Jones.
Because of that, because they've already flexed. Didn't we talk about this in the group chat? They given us round 2 of the Commanders versus the Giants.
Yes, they just flexed the Raiders. They flexed the Raiders Patriots game to 1:00 instead of Sunday night to give us the rematch of the tie. So I guess the NFL likes kissing their sister, and I hope they get another tie. Matter of fact, I hope it's a 3-3 tie this time, just for what they did, just because they hate.
Wow.
But yeah, this Colts Cowboys game was, I mean, it was a foregone conclusion, right? The Colts did try to come out, and they came. I will say this: they came out with energy. And in the first quarter, you thought maybe they're going to try to keep it competitive, and the reality is they led at the end of the first quarter. And in the words of a disgraced pop star and a sample that was used by a disgraced rapper slash producer slash billionaire slash presidential candidate, it all fell down after the second quarter. 54-19, Cowboys win by not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. They won by 5 touchdowns, 35 points. So you could have tripled the point spread for this game and still covered your money. But the surprising part about this, though, was the fact that although they put up 54 points, if you are a Dak Prescott owner, you are not happy. Under 200 yards with 3 touchdowns. You have to be looking at the score like 54 points, 170 yards. Dak, where were you this game? What do you think?
Dak. Very simple. Dak, the Dak you saw on Sunday is the same Dak you about to see this upcoming Sunday when they play the Texans. And the ball to Zeke. Hand the ball to Tony Pollard. You don't have to do much when you know you're playing a team that ain't gonna score. So you're just gonna try to get out there with as few injuries as possible. What do? You run the ball to keep the clock going. So that's what you're gonna see on Sunday.
So you definitely had to be happy.
You throw just enough passes to keep them honest. So he probably passed in the first quarter. You know, the game was close, and once they start blowing it open, we just gonna keep running it or throwing short passes to the tight ends. Keep the clock going. Don't risk any turnovers.
Pretty much the nail in the coffin was the 3-yard touchdown pass he threw at the start of the fourth quarter. And then, you had a fumble return for a touchdown. Tony and Zeke both added touchdowns in fourth quarter. And then once they were sitting on the bench, Malik Davis had a 23-yard touchdown run just for poops and giggles. So, I mean, it was an all-around just stomping of the Colts, who, if you're Matt Ryan, you're kind of hoping at this point that Tom Brady does try to play another year, because you're certainly not. You've got to be thinking it's time to join Kurt and Boomer and all those other ex-NFL quarterbacks and go ahead and start your NFL analyst career. Because at this point, if there was any bloom left on the Matt Ryan rose, it has been exposed. I don't see any other teams continuing to take a flyer on a quarterback at his age. The skills and the abilities, they're just not there anymore. Former MVP, led his team to the Super Bowl, worst collapse in Super Bowl history, and that will show you the second half of his career since that Super Bowl loss. But one game I do want to touch on that I actually didn't put on our production schedule. Yes, we do actually do a production schedule. We try to do things a little bit professionally over here. Is I do want to touch on this Chiefs Bengals game. I didn't realize this until they said it at the end of the game that Joe Burrow is now undefeated in his short career against Patrick Mahomes. Talk to me about why Mahomes cannot. Why is Joe Cool Patrick Mahomes kryptonite?
Same reason that Tom Brady was Peyton Manning's kryptonite. Everybody has that one, and I think he's that one. Because it's not like Patrick Mahomes goes out here and has horrible games. He's producing, but it's just like somehow come and it's never a blowout. Because if I remember correctly, Joe Burrow has beat him by 3 points 3 times. It's not like he's coming in and they just dog walking him out the stadium. They have his shootouts every if not that now I'm not gonna say shootout like he had with Jared Goff back in the day that every fantasy owner was ecstatic about.
Yes, Lord.
but he just I don't know, because it's not like it'd be different if he was coming in and not producing, but he producing. But somehow they just can't get the W. I don't want to say his teammates are letting him down because like he just got killed, but they just can't get it done.
I mean, can we say that though? 2 for 71 for Valdez-Scantling, 4 for 56 on 6 targets for Kelsey, 3 for 35 on 4 targets for Juju. Pacheco snuck in a couple of catches. Pacheco 66 yards rushing and a touchdown. So not a great fantasy day, not terrible. Mahomes, like I said, I can't remember the last time Mahomes had a actual rushing touchdown where it wasn't just like a sneak. He had a nice little 6-yard rollout so he did score 2 total touchdowns on the day, but in a game where you have, again, two offenses that can both go off, you got to be kind of disappointed that you didn't get more out of Mahomes, especially, again, if you're trying to make a playoff push. These are the games where you don't want Mahomes doing it. You just want Mahomes dropping back and throwing bombs to try to get you some points. Now, on the other side, Joe Burrow has established himself.
27 attempts. That's not very Mahomes.
No. You would expect 40 attempts from Mahomes in this game, in all honesty. But even Joe Burrow only had 31 attempts. So it's not like either offense was just dropping back and trying to throw the pass. When it didn't turn into a shootout, Cincinnati handed the ball off to Samaje Perine, who was doing it through the air and on the ground. So as he's, filling in for that starting role right now, 106 yards on the ground, 49 yards passing. That's a very solid day. And you do have to give it up to the Cincinnati defense, who forced a Travis Kelce fumble late in the game to put themselves in position to score the winning touchdown. So Kelce's a pretty sure-handed receiver and not known for turnovers. So got to give a shout out to that Cincinnati linebacking core that came in and stayed hungry and gave their offense a chance to go and win this game.
Look at the score breakdown. Kansas City didn't score in the 4th quarter.
No.
Yeah, that might be the difference.
Yeah, and but the crazy thing is, we all know. So Kansas City got the ball back with about 5 minutes to go. And so even after they scored the touchdown and went up 3, everyone's thinking, okay, 5 minutes. I mean, we've seen Patrick Mahomes, we've seen him do this with 37 seconds, which is get his team down into a scoring position. So no one thought that the Chiefs weren't going to at least get a field goal to tie this game up. So, unfortunately, Butker ended up having to miss a long field goal which gave the ball back to Cincinnati, who never gave the ball back to KC. And that's how the game ended. But it was definitely a surprise that game didn't either end up in overtime or end up with another couple of scores in order for it to have a more surprise ending. So, but all right, well, that's it for the NFL breakdown this week, unless we're forgetting something. Was there anything else we needed to talk about?
The autumn wind.
Oh, yeah. There is one other game we need to discuss. I know you don't think I forgot about the Raiders versus the Colts from Las Vegas. So want to give a shout out to our wonderful co-host, Dr. Deuce, who's not here with us today. Our resident Colts fan. I'd love to have him here to break down this Colts versus Raider game and force him to talk about how Derek Carr, his starting quarterback, put up 250 yards and 2 touchdowns, who also had a pick 6. I'd love for him to talk about how Austin Eckler was held to 35 yards on the ground and Eckler didn't score this week after how many weeks in a row of scoring at least 1 touchdown. I'd love for him to talk about how Chandler Jones had 3 first-half sacks and how Justin Herbert just never looked comfortable in the pocket the whole day, who ended up throwing a touchdown to Keenan Allen. I definitely would love to get Keenan Allen's barbecue chicken recipe that he swore he was going to break out on Sunday in a losing effort. But instead, I'll talk about how Josh Jacobs continues to just pound defenses into submission. Pause, no homo, whatever you wanted to add there. But this week, the Jacobs train continued 26 carries for 144 yards and a 20-yard touchdown. Devontae Adams, y'all swore that Devontae Adams was going to fall off as a Raider with Derek Carr as his quarterback. All Devontae is doing is top 5 in receiving yards, top 5 in receptions, and he's tied for the lead in receiving touchdowns this season. So, I mean, you tell me from a fantasy standpoint and from a player standpoint if Devontae still has value. So, you know, he's not here. And so, you know, it doesn't give me the joy that it usually would to talk about this game. But I cannot let this moment pass without reminding people that there's a little bet that he and I have on each Chargers and Raiders game where the winner has to change their avatar for a whole week. So here I present you with the lovely avatar for the week for Dr. Caldwell. We appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again back in our graces next week. But it's not all bad news for Dr. Deuce this week. So as we go into the Texas League results from this week, we are going to start off with the surprise and shock of the week. Math is King got its second win. Jared, I know you are ready to tell everyone why I lost. So please, my brother, break it down.
You know, there are some moves that you made that I didn't agree with, but it's your team. We can start with the Thursday night performance by Jacoby Myers, but you talked about earlier about where was Jacoby Myers, and the answer, not putting up points.
No, he was not putting up points.
But what I said for the second time this year, I suggested that you bench Mike Evans. I said that in week 2 to bench Mike Evans. But you said I've got the Brady to Evans combo, and I believe that they're going to produce at home. Can we go down to the bench? I said bench Mike Evans. Everybody watching, can y'all see how many points he has with Mr. Smith out of Philadelphia? That would have given him the win this week.
It would have.
Even with Jacoby Myers' subpar performance, he still would have got that win.
I mean, you can't win them all. And yes, it was unfortunate. So I actually jumped the gun a little bit. We skipped over Monday Night Football, and I did not mean to do that because I definitely want to talk
I
about.
can I'm gonna summarize that game right quick as the resident Buccaneers fan. In my opinion, I don't know what they did for the first, I don't know, 57 minutes or so. I'm gonna say for about the first 55 minutes, I wasn't quite sure what they were doing. Then about 5 minutes left in the game, I guess they said, you know what? We're just gonna let Tom Brady call his own plays. You can't tell me he wasn't out there calling his own plays. They was running no huddle, and they moved the ball up and down the field, not once but twice. I put it on Twitter. I'm like, from here forward, we need to go ahead and let Byron Leftwich scheme up an opening drive because everybody has that first drive and it's normally pretty good. After that, we're just gonna let Brady call. He's just gonna pretend like it's madness. Just line up, run no huddle, call his own plays. We're gonna change the formations that's needed, and we're just gonna keep it going because we are the best team in the worst division. We are playoff bound. They're probably gonna be we probably gonna be 8-9.
This is true. So the unfortunate result of that win by Mathis King is that I have been mathematically eliminated from playoff contention. So somewhere at his son's performance, he is smiling on the inside at the irony of the math PhD mathematically knocking me out. So we salute you for getting your second win of the season, Dr. Deuce. So I'm happy. I'm happy with the season split versus you, and I'm also happy with the season split between our favorite NFL teams. But once again, we got the last laugh, so you got to hold on to that L until next season. All right. So going into, as we said, had a lot of rivalries and a lot of playoff implications this week. So after playing his way back into a win in week 12, we had cousin versus cousin, where Stairway to Evans wanted to win to solidify his hold on the playoff position, where Super Mario Cristobal needed a W in order to keep his slim playoff hopes alive. And well, what you can see here is the result of another very close game. Did not go the way of the underdog. So Super Mario Cristobal, Justin Herbert, again, just not a good day for him. He's still missing one of his high-powered weapons in Mike Williams. Keenan Allen catches a late touchdown for him to actually make his stat line look respectable. Otherwise, it was really just a pedestrian day. And he was a real victim of a lack of touchdown production. I mean, his only touchdown from a position player was T. Higgins in that Cincinnati game. Brandon Ayuk, unusable. Brian Robinson, not there. Nick Chubb somehow failed to score a touchdown against the Texans. You can't start a Rams running back. Like, I thought we established that. No matter how desperate you are, if you have another option on your bench, and you did for the flex spot. So this is where you have to be hurting. So we both have a shared mistake at the flex spot that basically lost us our game this week. Came to the Super Mario Cristobal. I won't go back to your old team name, but yeah, brother, join me here on the journey to the consolation bracket this season. So on the other side of the ball, though, Stairway to Evans, it's not like his team had anyone that blew you away until you get to the defense.
The Cleveland defense.
This was the pickup of the week. I mean, two defensive touchdowns, three really if you count the punt return touchdown, which does go for the defense in our league. So, I mean, 32 points. But the crazy thing is, both of these defense put up better than average numbers. I mean, tripled the output, 250% of the projection. So it was just not your day, Super Mario. So we also give you the maybe next year salute in terms of the result of your game. in a battle of people who the winner is going to keep the edge on this particular game. Now, go ahead and tell us the embarrassing part about Acorn's loss, Jared.
I don't know if I really want to call it embarrassing versus good strategy. She went into the Monday night game with Alvin Kamara in that running back spot and then took him out to make sure he didn't fumble her out of a win, which I can respect. That's what that is, because I've done that myself. Since we implemented fumbles being a negative point thing, if you got that lead going into Monday, I'm just take him out. Alvin Kamara has not been the guy that he has been in the past.
That's just
he didn't fumble, so it didn't kill him.
Just for the record, Kamara would not have hurt her to play him. He didn't do nothing much, but he would not have been damaging. And then on the other side of the ball, I mean, again, the problem is the flex. Like, yeah, okay, so yes, Waddle definitely got hurt because if a player is on Ed Corn's team and they underproduced, they got hurt. And here we have him sitting in the flex spot, so he definitely got hurt on Sunday. But yeah, that's an unfortunate injury because, again, the flex spot was the killer in a very close game. Now, it does not knock Ed Corn out of playoff contention, but it puts him in a position where he needs a win plus help going into this final week of the season. Two boobs, two balls versus Kirkwood. Again, both teams fighting for playoff position, but also a game that we all picked against him in. So we all picked against Kirkwood this week, and we were all wrong. The Giants don't have a great defense, right? Did not see Jalen Hurts going off for 4 touchdowns against them, 4 total touchdowns against them this week. So that's a huge, but again, when we come down here to this flex spot, just not good. But the biggest disappointment, as I alluded to earlier in that Buffalo versus New England game, is 0 catches for Dawson Knox. Now, I watched that game, right? He was only targeted once. And there were 3 or 4 other plays, including a red zone play where he was wide open. And Josh Allen never even looked his way. So I have Dawson Knox on my team in a different league. So I'm screaming at the TV, turn your head to the right, fool. But unfortunately, he never did. So Dawson produced a goose egg for 2 boobs, 2 balls, who fell to 7-6, and Kirkwood solidified his opportunity to go to the playoffs sitting at 8-5. So again, both of them alive and well, heading towards the playoffs. Now, the battle of 1 versus 2. Armed robbery and company man. Exactly what we thought it would be. Jared, break this one down for us.
Well, as we said earlier, here's something that, as I'm looking at it, shocked me. Company man's team is normally led by Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes had a pedestrian 20 points by Patrick Mahomes standards. And he still got the win, which was kind of shocking, considering that armed robbery had St. Brown that we talked about that had that good game. But once again, actually, even his flex with Chris Olave was he actually had a decent flex performance. But his flex put up 8.5. Company man's flex put up 24.9.
And there's your difference.
I think the mantra for the week is, did your flex produce? That's what I think. Did your flex produce this week? If the answer is yes, you probably won.
That seems to be the trend for the week.
And I would just like to mention Amari Cooper on the road, 6 points. I just want to say that.
Indeed. Now, again, I thought that Deshaun Watson would come out a lot more energized, a lot more accurate, but the time off was definitely apparent. I thought maybe Amari Cooper would break the trend, but no, he continued to hold hard to home Amari versus away Amari. Now, luckily for Company Man, he's already sitting pretty going into the playoffs, having solidified a playoff spot because Amari's on the road at Cincinnati next week. So you're not going to expect much out of him in that particular matchup. But Company Man's good, and Company Man was our high scorer for the week. So we go now to the final matchup of the week for our league with yet another team in Muff Divers trying to keep their playoff hopes alive with the win, and hanging with Hernandez needing a win to also stay in playoff contention. Jared, talk to me.
Lamar Jackson got hurt early in the game. I think if he had gotten hurt in practice, he would have been stuck. I believe his backup quarterback or his second quarterback is Jared Goff. And I think Jared Goff had 22 points, if I remember correctly.
23.3
points. That's all he needs to win this matchup.
Yep.
His team, his team didn't just have he didn't have a great game. His flex was subpar with 1.1 points. But other than his tight end, who was from Dallas, so that offense didn't do a whole lot, and that flex. Everything else was fairly, comparable. Because the thing is this: Angel Hernandez started Daniel Jones. That game was not a barn burner. He only scored 17 points.
Right.
So if he had a quarterback who did anything, he'd been all right. But he was not.
No,
he could
unfortunately,
not overcome the 1.27%. Because he lost by 17 points, if my math is right, ballpark figure.
Yep.
17. So all you needed was a quarterback to put up an average day.
Right.
Yeah. Jared Goff would have gave him the W.
This
is
true.
He got hurt in the game.
Yep. So, unfortunately, this means that Muff Divers also joins us on the couch. So we have 4 teams that are eliminated from playoff contention, 2 teams that have solidified their playoff spots. And
I thought it was just Company Man. Company Man was on.
Well, this is true.
The asterisk next to his name.
This is true. Yes, this is true. So Company Man's the only team that's in. But I'll say this: any of the teams with 8 wins, any team with 8 wins controls their own fate. They win and get in. So Stairway to Evans, Kirkwood, Armed Roger. They all have a win and get in scenario if they can also get their teams to 9 wins. So, but you do still essentially have 7 teams fighting for 5 spots. So before we get into this week's picks, let's take a look at our updated stats on our predictions for the season. So, not only did Mathis King win his matchup this week, for the first time in a long time, he had the most correct picks for the week. So he picked 4 out of 6 games correctly, including his own victory, to get him to 50%. So he's back on the positive side of things this season. Jared still leads overall with 63.6, and I am in the middle at 59.1. So with that being said, let us go into picking the week 14 final week of the regular season games. We'll start off with my game, which is literally a game for pride at this point, just to say either one of us gets a win. Since it doesn't have any playoff implications, I'm not going to do a lot of breakdown. I mean, you have bye week, so it's going to be switched out, so I expect Herbert will be in there. I expect Hopkins is going to be back after his bye week. Darren Waller will not be back this week. That was announced today. He'll be back for the Patriots game. Um, so, even with the addition of Justin Herbert and DeAndre Hopkins, um, I am actually going to pick myself this week. A part of me thought about picking against myself because, again, I know this prediction is inaccurate because of, the roster moves that we know are going to be made, but it's the final game of the season. I'm already eliminated. Why not gamble? If I'm going to gamble on somebody, why not gamble on me? So I'm going to go with Devastator for this game.
Yeah, I think that I too will vote for Devastator, my co-host, to win this because because basically you just said that this game is for pride, and your team will show up this week just because it don't
My
mean
team, my team loves to show up for no nothing
playoffs.
games. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now our missing co-host picked Super Mario, so we have our first discordant pick of the night starting off. All right.
Yeah.
So next, speaking of co-host on co-host action, we have the playoff hopeful Stairway to Evans versus the still mathematically eliminated, despite his win last week, Mathis King. Who do you, even though this is not our normal tradition, I'm still going to let you go first and pick your
game. He won last week. He got his second win. He's feeling good about himself. We need to go ahead and shut that down. So I'm picking myself. I need my team to get it together. We, like I said, I'm gonna need Todd Bowles and Brian Leftwich to let Brady just kind of call his own play, sling it around, so we can get some love from Leonard Fournette and Chris Godwin. We know that Detroit is known to not play defense consistently.
This is very true.
Yeah, that 6 teams on bye is going to make for some interesting matchups this week.
Very much so.
But I'm picking myself.
Dr. Deuce, Mathis King picked himself. I am also going to go with Stairway to Evans.
Of course he picked himself.
They just have it's just a better team. Thursday night game, Raiders versus the Rams. I expect that to be a running game. They're going to continue to feature Josh Jacobs, so I don't see a lot of points come out of Derek Carr on Thursday night. Kareem Hunt has been almost non-existent this season from a fantasy standpoint. Even if you swap out and throw Kyler Murray in for Monday Night Football, he's been mediocre this year. And even if you do play him, you can only expect so much out of him. Like, he's not a miracle worker. So I got to go with Stairway to Evans for the win. All right. Matchup number 3. Acorn versus Two Boobs, Two Balls, One Goal. The loser is out of the playoffs. Like, that's just a hole and a half of it. 7 wins is not going to get 7 wins is not going to get you in the playoffs this season, more than likely. So
I think it might. I think if you got enough points, it might sneak you in the back door. But
there won't be more than one 7-win team in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
So, because like I said, even if all the 8-win teams lose and you're a 7-win team, you're still below all those other teams above you. So, so this one, serious implications. Now, I got to take a look and see who my man has on the bench, because this is going to be his biggest problem. You are in a must-win game for your fantasy life, and your quarterback is Mike White. You need Chicago Mike White, not Minnesota Mike White. But unfortunately, you're going up against this Buffalo Bills defense. Now, you don't have to deal with Von Miller, who's out, but you do have to deal with everybody else who's still there on the Bills defense. And they have a defense that plays fast and they play aggressive. And you have quarterback on quarterback action here. And this is too big of a question mark here. This is your X factor, right? Josh Jacobs has been on a tear. So, but even if he gets you his average, if he gets you the 20 to 22 points of a good game, it's not going to be enough. It's going to be enough to keep push. It's only going to push Ed Corn down further. So I'm going to go with 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal for the win. Their matchups to me are just better. AJ Brown, Thielen versus Detroit, Pacheco at Denver. Denver's horrible. This is still a question mark. I think that this is going to end up being changed out. I don't think they're going to bring Mixon back for this game versus Cleveland. I think they can win. I think Perrine has shown that they can win without him. And if they can let Mixon take an extra week to keep getting healthier as they push towards the playoffs, I think they'll do that. And you have options on your bench. So I can see this being a swap out. But even still got to go with 2 boobs, 2 balls. Who you like?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal. Kind of like you said, he got the better matchups, even despite the Dawson Knox tight end situation. I don't know. I didn't see another tight end on his bench.
No, not another one there.
I didn't see one, so I guess he's just gonna roll with him unless he's trying to pick up one in. Maybe we'll wake up in the morning and see he picked up one, but.
Right.
He got the matchups. Josh Jacobs against the Rams with no Aaron Donald, who I thought was still out. Should make it easier to run. Joe Mixon, even if he plays, it's gonna be good. Well, that team is solid. If he doesn't play, I thought we saw a couple options on the bench he could plug in. I just think, this is their. I think this is his game to win, or I guess you could say his game to lose, because I think he got the better matchups. Because Acorn don't really have anybody on his bench to put in there.
This is bye week hell.
That's about it.
This is bye week hell.
Yeah.
Even if you get a great game from DJ Moore, even if you get DJ Moore's best game of the season with 26, I still don't see that being enough to offset all of the firepower that's expected to come from this side of the ball. Now, what you do have here is you still have this very dangerous wide receiver duo. And if both of them get hot, which we know they both have the capability of, so, you had a 40-point game from Diggs this season. Chase, before he was hurt, had back-to-back 30-point games, but that's lightning in the bottle.
You know something as I'm sitting here that just hit me. I just noticed he has both Miami running backs against the Chargers. They can produce some points, but they're gonna kind of cannibalize each other.
They are.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with
that's a problem.
2 balls, 1 goal.
We have our first consensus of the week, as Mathis King also sent in the pick for 2 boobs, 2 balls, 1 goal. All right. Now we have Arm Rodri, who is trying to regain that number 1 spot, or even just solidify one of the 2 playoff bye weeks with a win over Muff Divers. Muff Divers is also a team that is just playing for pride this weekend. But we already know that Lamar Jackson is not walking through that door on Sunday. Lamar Jackson is not playing, so let's take a look and see what the backup quarterback situation. Okay. Minnesota can be scored on. So, we would assume that that Goff goes in, and that's 21 points there. But who do we have as flex? So yeah, so I mean, there's no fall off when you swap out, right? Because you have Olave on the bye, but then you have Green, you have Boyd, you have Corey Davis. Like you have very solid flex options to replace Olave. Like picking up a kicker, no big deal. Picking up a defense. I mean, if you can try to catch lightning in the bottle like that Cleveland thing last week, then hey, go for it. But but other than that,
the thing is this: the Cowboys are playing the Texans this week, and we know that defense is already on somebody's roster. So I don't
absolutely
see another lightning in a bottle situation.
no.
But stranger things have happened.
I don't know. If you don't have a good defense, you might want to gamble on that Raiders versus Rams defense on Thursday night. I mean, the Rams picked up Baker Mayfield this week, and they're talking about throwing him in the game. Nothing says turnover opportunity like new quarterback in a new system. So, we'll see. But yeah, I got to go with Armed Rodgery. Muff Divers season ended last week, and I don't see them getting a pride win this week. What about you?
Yeah, stranger things have happened, but I don't see that happening either. Arm Rodgery's been solid all year, and I think he's gonna hit the waiver wire, get the necessary players, and get his ninth win of the season.
Yeah, I would have to concur. All right. And so that is our second consensus of the week, which means that Muff Divers is probably going to pull off an upset because we all agree that Armed Rodgery should be poised for an easy win. In a battle of teams currently sitting in playoff position, we have Company Man, who with a win will hold on to a first round bye, versus the Big Green, who also with a win can get in, as she currently holds the 6th playoff spot, which means that she has tiebreakers over spots 7, 8, and 9, who all have 7 wins as well. So take us through this matchup, Jared.
Oh, we got Dak Prescott versus Houston. Like I said earlier, I believe that's going to be a low-scoring affair for him. So, once you get up, you ain't got to do much. Tyreek Hill versus the Chargers. Yeah. But that running back is where I see the points coming. Derrick Henry versus the AFC South. Everybody knows he enjoys running ramp shot against his division mates. Not as much as he enjoys running ramp shot against the Texans, but I think it's a close second.
So we definitely see a empty spot. So we can definitely expect to see Williams here slide up into this empty running back spot. And the most likely candidate
Vulture himself
for that flex is Gallup here, sitting down there with the wide receiver quarterback stack, especially considering Lamar Jackson's out this week. And I don't even know the guys. I don't even know who the backup quarterback is in Baltimore. But it ain't Lamar. If it ain't Lamar Jackson, it is Hundley. So it definitely is Hundley, who is a NFL journeyman, who did just enough to get Baltimore the win last week over the horrible Broncos. But I don't think you're starting him in a fantasy situation. So you can't put your hopes in a must-win situation on wanting the quarterback to throw to the 3rd or 4th receiving option on the team. So yeah, we're gonna see Michael Gallup thrown in here. On the other side, Company Man currently sitting with an empty tight end spot, which has been a problem all season. So we're gonna have to see a waiver wire scramble for a tight end.
Yeah.
This right here, man. This Chuba Hubbard right here in this in spelling in spelling this wide receiver, this running back spot this week. Who do you like?
Like, I actually like Big Green this week because Company Man's team is so depleted due to buys. It might be, it's like I don't want to say he can afford to lose, but he can afford to lose, and he might have to because look at his bench. Everybody's on buy or hurt.
Yep.
So, and he can release some of these people to go pick up some people.
Yeah.
But the question is, who do you want to release? Who's on the waiver wire? I think this might be the week that he takes an L. He's already secured his spot.
I think so too.
He's gonna win the division.
Yeah, that's gone. That's so he's got the division locked. If he doesn't win, he needs some help to hold on to that first round bye. But I don't think he's gonna win. I think Big Green wins. I think Big Green wins this week. Better matchups for the players. Hawkinson versus so two big things stick out. Derrick Henry, like you said, versus the AFC South, 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. Hawkinson at home in Detroit, the former team that drafted him and then traded him within the division. You think he's not going to see 10, 12 targets this weekend from Kirk Cousins? You better believe it. So he's going to eat. So I see Big Green getting her 8th win and getting the opportunity to defend her championship as we roll into the playoffs. And then in our last matchup of the week, we have Kirkwood versus Haywood Hernandez. Kirkwood has been a strong manager for the league, has lost 3 times in the championship game, I believe. If my memory serves me correctly.
That
So
sounds
he's
about right.
Still looking for his first league championship and in a position to get himself into the playoffs, and with a win and a loss by a couple of 9-win teams, have himself in a position for a first round bye. Haywood Hernandez is one of those 7-win teams that currently is out of a playoff spot, but with a win and some help, we can definitely see him making a push and a jump into the playoffs. So who do you like in this particular matchup, Jared?
I am gonna go with Kirkwood in this one because as Jalen Hurts goes, his team seems to go. Tua, like we've talked about that Chargers defense and how they're not the best thing. They've got a little bit better as the season goes along. He's got he's got Devontae Adams, who we talked about earlier, has been producing. But the other players on this team,
Gabe Davis has been
Miles
absent.
Sanders.
Gabe Davis has been absent for 3 weeks running now.
Yeah, he hasn't. But I think Gabe Davis has been absent because Josh Allen has been putting up in 30 and 40-point games.
Yeah.
You got Connor as that second RB. He's been touchdown dependent.
Yeah.
If he scores a touchdown, he's all right. But against that Chargers defense, 25 carries, 120 yards, he looked all right without a touchdown.
Yeah.
But
so
you got Dameon Pierce at the flex.
Against that Cowboys
I don't
defense.
see him doing much against that Dallas defense. Chris just needs to pick up a kicker to put in there.
Yeah.
I think he gets the win. I don't think it's a blowout, but I think he's gonna get that win and lock up. I think it will allow him to lock up a first round bye. Because if I'm looking at the standings, Company Man is 9-4. Kirkwood is 8-5. Arm Rodgery is 8-5. Arm Rodgery and Kirkwood both have more points than him at this current point.
So if they all finish with the same, if they all finish with the same record,
if they all finish at 9-5, Company Man is going to fall to third because unless he has. Now I will say that currently Kirkwood has 1530, Arm Rodgery has 1538, Company Man has 1506. So we're talking about roughly about 25 points more for Kirkwood, about 30 points more for Arm Rodgery. So even in a losing effort, he'd have to outscore them by that amount in his respective matchup. And the way his team was looking, I don't see that happening. But Company Man's gonna need a win, which I don't see him getting. Kirkwood, I see getting a win, and I think Arm Rodgery gets a win. But there could be some shuffling at the top when it comes to them bye weeks.
Indeed.
Next week we'll know for sure.
Indeed. I'm also gonna go with Kirkwood, simply because I think that, like you said, as Jalen Hurts is trying to keep his name rightfully alive in the MVP discussion. So that performance last week against the Titans reminded everyone that he's still around. Freiermuth has a favorable matchup against Baltimore, whose linebackers have been very suspect this season. They don't defend the tight end well, so he should exceed his projection of 8.3. And again, a kicker, easy to find. I don't necessarily know if he should pick up a defense with Baltimore, because the other thing about Pittsburgh is not a dangerous team offensively. So I think he can still get some value out of keeping Baltimore's defense. So I expect Baltimore to lose this game. I don't expect Pittsburgh to blow them out. But the absence of Lamar Jackson is going to be a big blow. And they're going to be in Pittsburgh. So low scoring game, which will also benefit the Baltimore defense, but I think it'll be enough to get Kirkwood the win. And in a not surprise at all, Mathis King, our third host, actually picked Hanging with Hernandez. So we're half discordant, half in agreement this week. So we have reached the final week of the regular season. It has been fun doing this. This has been a great experience for us so far. We will continue to do this as we go into the playoffs next week. So hopefully, who knows, maybe we can get one of our bye week leaders from week one to come in with us so that they don't feel the pressure of having to pick their own game for the first round of the playoffs. And then we'll go from there. So best of luck to everybody in this final week. So I just do want to give a shout out to Mathis King and Ed Korn. We are also all in a separate league together where all three of us are fighting for playoff positioning. Ed Korn and myself have secured a playoff spot. Ed Korn is fighting for a bye. I already have a bye secured. And Mathis King, in that league, he's known as Deuce. He needs a win to get in. So best of luck to everybody in all your leagues this weekend as we head into this final week of the regular season. May the odds be ever in your favor. See you next week, everybody.